Hi, it's Jen with Inspired Horsemanship, and it's a fabulous Friday here in Ocala, Florida. It's a little on the windy side, so I've been inside doing a lot of studying, and I'm learning a lot of new things to be able to share with you in the future. I've got people who I'm lining up to have interviews with to share with you about different things that people are doing to help with your horsemanship, to help bring health to your horses, and maybe with a farrier, body workers, different positive reinforcement trainers to share to help you on your journey. So today I'm going to be talking about the 3 F's to have healthy horses. And so the very first one, and here's Journey and Rio to talk about it, is forage, and they just love forage. Forage being either grass or hay. And so in Minnesota, they would have 24/7 hay with a round bale during the winter, and then they were out at pasture. It was large pastures where they can roam that had grass hay, Minnesota prairie hay, which was awesome. And so that is being very fundamental, another F word, fundamental for having healthy horses, to keep their gut health and to keep, and being outside in a paddock or outside in a pasture helps with that movement. And forage means that they have to go and seek after the food. So in a stall setting, usually the hay is right there, there's no movement, they just eat, and a lot of times it may be just hay for 1 to 3 times a day. So the best, healthiest thing for your horse is to have a forage of either hay or grasses in a 24/7 setting. And so that's the very first thing that I think is really important. And in a paddock situation, if you don't have large pastures, you can design a paddock paradise system, which is a track system where you can put hay along a track where the horses have to move towards getting their hay. So again, the seeking system is brought out, and that movement helps keep their gut health moving, if that makes sense. The second one is friends. So what are your horses' living situation like? Are they in a stall? Are they in a paddock or in their pasture? A lot of horses here in Ocala are a lot of times 12 hours in a stall. Gets very hot and humid here in the summer, and sometimes the sun is and the humidity is too much for them. And in the winter in Minnesota, a lot of horses are in the stalls at night or during the day, depending on the weather. And my horses in Minnesota were out 24/7. And whether it was winter, spring, summer, or fall, they adapted very, very well to being outside. And so in that freedom, which is the second one, is freedom of a pasture or a paddock for movement, that they can be out being horses. So in a stall situation, I really want to encourage each one of you to think about what a stall inhibits. A lot of times we have to have our horses in a stall, whether it's an emergency situation where there's an injury, or like here in the summer, my horses needed to be stalled because Rio had an eye injury and Journey had summer sores and needed to be under a fan. And so again, I'd like to make that as little as possible so that that freedom being out into a pasture or a paddock system, so that they can be horses to run, to play, to have movement. And so that's that freedom. I love that idea of horses being horses, that they can be surrounded by friends. And that's the third one, is do your horses have friends in their paddock, in their pasture? If they're in a stall situation, a lot of times the dividers are up so that they really can't mingle with their brothers and sisters. And so a lot of times they just don't have that herd dynamic or that family dynamic. And in the wild, we have to think about that horses are herd animals. They're in family bands. We just change things in domestication, and the horses have to adapt to that. And they're very adaptable, but is that the healthiest for them? Sometimes we can't have anything else but a stall. I understand that. When I was in Malaysia, the horses were stalled 24/7 because there just wasn't land available. And I thought that was weird, but that's the way it is in a lot of countries. There isn't land available for pasture or paddock board. So think about that with the friends. How does that really affect that relational part of horses who are very relational? And if you watch a band of horses, or if you watch horses in a pasture or in a paddock, you know that they have their best friends. You know that they have, like my Rio right here was in a band of brothers. We called them the band of brothers. They were redheads. They were all redheads, in fact. There was George and Red and Rio, and they were the three amigos, and they went everywhere together. And so, yes, that was the brotherhood. And Journey, being a Nakota, he had his Nakota brothers. He also had some other Bay brothers who were completely Bay. He's a Bay roan, meaning he's Bay colored with black mane and tail and 4 black socks. Except he has a little roan in him, meaning there's some silver in him also, which is just beautiful. So he hung out with the Bay boys and his Nakota brothers, and that was his family band. And so when we moved to Florida, these two came together, Mr. Bossy Pants and Mr. Journey, and they became inseparable. Why? Because there were no other horses with them. And so my hope and prayer is to get more horses in a pasture setting that they can go and play and develop more horse friendships. Because it's very hard if I want to take Rio out, Journey is alone, or if I want to take Journey out alone, then Mr. Bossy Pants gets worried and starts getting a little frantic. He's 21 years old this year, so think about that. We don't want that anxiety. So families are very important. So let's just review the 3 F's for healthy horses. We've got forage, which is your grass or your hay, develops a seeking system in a paddock paradise situation in a paddock, where if you put a track down where they can move, is excellent if you have only small paddocks where we want to develop that movement. In a pasture, of course, they're always going from point A to point B to over here to running back over here in a big pasture. So the second one is freedom. We want our horses to have that movement, to be able to run and play and to be horses. And again, the best thing is to get them out of that stall situation. I've heard from many people, their horses love the stall, and that's where they feel safe, and that's where they grew up. And of course, they've made an association with a stall being a good thing. And being out, if they're in a paddock by themselves, they're very vulnerable. So we want to be able to think a bigger picture for our horses, just like for ourselves. What do we feel like when we're alone? Living alone, without our family, without friends, we become very vulnerable. So just think about that. And that goes into then their friends. So if they're in a stall situation all day long and they can't touch noses, they can't mutually groom, they can't go run and play. My boys run and play and rear and do all sorts of fun things together. And I love seeing that because they move their bodies, they're having fun, and I know that they're friends. And so family bands, herd animals, forage, freedom. Think about that. about your horses. It's all a good thing. I'm just sharing with you some inspired moments from Jen with Inspired Horsemanship. Thank you.